Does talking about money make you uncomfortable? Like your chest tightens a little. You avoid looking at your bank account. You don't really want to talk about finances with your spouse. You keep saying, I'll figure it out later. And maybe deep down, money doesn't just feel practical to you, it feels emotional, heavy, stressful, maybe even scary. And the crazy part is, most people think the problem is they're just bad with money. But what if the real issue is this? Nobody ever taught you how to feel safe around money. Growing up, maybe you heard things like, money doesn't grow on trees, or we can't afford that. Maybe the only time money was talked about was when bills were spread all over the kitchen table. Stress, silence, tension, and without even realizing it, your brain slowly connected money with survival, not peace, freedom, and not stewardship, but based on survival. So now as an adult, even if you make decent money, even if both paychecks are coming in, money conversations still feel emotionally heavy. You avoid and delay them. You hope things somehow work themselves out. And if that sounds like you, this video is for you. Because today, I want to talk about why talking about money feels so scary for so many people, and three mindset shifts that can help money stop feeling like such a heavy emotional burden in your life. I think one of the biggest things people don't realize is this: money was never just money to you. For many of us, money became safety. Money, it became stress, it's fear, it's your survival. Money became that thing that determined whether life felt stable or unstable. And when you grow up around that, it shapes you more than you even realize. I remember hearing money doesn't grow on trees. As a child, you don't really think deeply about those phrases at the time, but they settle somewhere in your mind. You start believing money is hard to get. It disappears quickly, it causes stress. Money should be feared. It should stay private. Money conversations are uncomfortable. And then you grow up. Now you're an adult and you have responsibilities, bills to pay, growing kids, a household, a marriage, and careers. And suddenly, all of those emotional beliefs around money start showing up in real life. Maybe you avoid checking your bank account, you feel anxiety after paying bills, you even feel guilty spending money on yourself. Maybe even bringing up and talking about finances with your spouse feels emotionally loaded. Where do I start? What do we talk about? Not because you're irresponsible, but because money already had emotional meaning attached to it long before you ever learned financial skills. And I think this is important because so many people shame themselves. They think, why am I like this with money? But the truth is, a lot of what we feel around money was controlled and conditioned into us over years and years through our childhood, through stress, fear, even survival thinking, even through watching how adults around us handled money. And honestly, many households never talk openly about finances in a healthy way. It was either stress, there were arguments, people were silent about it, or they avoided it altogether and didn't have to deal with it. So now, as adults, a lot of people don't even know how to begin healthy money conversations because no one ever modeled it for them. One thing I realized about myself was that I connected money with safety. If money felt low, I felt unsafe. If unexpected expenses came up, I felt anxious about it. I remember having moments where after bills, and my debt were paid, I look at my account and see maybe like $100 left. And mentally that did something to me because even though the bills were technically paid, emotionally it still felt like, what if something happened? What if this isn't enough? What if we mess up? And I think so many people live in that quiet fear, not necessarily because they're irresponsible, but because their mind has been trained to constantly anticipate lack. And when your brain is wired for survival, money conversations, they don't feel calm. They feel threatening. That's why people, some people, they avoid looking at the numbers. They avoid budgets, just go out and wing it. and talking to their spouse about finances because the conversation, it feels emotionally unsafe. And I really want to pause here because this matters deeply. Avoiding those money conversations does not mean you don't care. A lot of times, it just means you care so much that it overwhelms you. That was me for a long time. So I know how you feel. I didn't even know where to start. And honestly, years ago, there weren't nearly as many conversations around financial mindset and emotional relationships with money like they are now. Most financial advice, it felt cold. It was all about numbers. There were rules that you had to follow, restrictions to restrict what you should be able to do with it. But nobody was really talking about the emotional side of money. Nobody was talking about how fear affects your financial decisions. Nobody was talking about how childhood conditioning follows us into adulthood and shapes our thoughts and perceptions around how we deal with money. And honestly, that's with anything, not just money itself, right? And when fear is leading your finances, listen, you stay stuck in a reaction mode, meaning you just keep trying to survive the month. Like, I'm gonna make it this month. I've covered, I got my bills paid. And you move on and you continue that survival instinct every month. You keep hoping things will improve later. You keep thinking once we make more money, everything will feel easier. How many times have you said that one and it never gets easier? But sometimes the real issue isn't income and making more money to solve your problems. Sometimes it's the emotional relationship we have with money itself is what we need to break through for easier money conversations with ourselves and others. So the first thing that started helping me was understanding why money felt so emotional in the first place. Instead of judging myself, I started asking deeper questions. Why does talking about money make me anxious? Why do I avoid it? Why do I immediately think worst case scenario financially? Why does money feel like tied to my sense of security? And that awareness changed everything when I was able to recognize that, because you cannot heal your relationship with money if you don't understand where the fear came from in the first place. And that's huge. A lot of people are trying to fix financial behaviors without first understanding the emotional root underneath them. It's kind of like when the check engine light comes on in your car. Imagine someone covering the light with tape because they don't want to really deal with it. The light disappears, but the actual issue underneath is still there. And eventually the car starts having bigger problems because the root issue was never addressed. That's how money can be emotionally. People try to fix the surface behavior by budgeting more, cutting out at spending on things that they don't need, or working more and then avoiding purchases altogether. Like, I'm not going to spend anything this month. But underneath it all, there's still fear of not having enough, making that wrong decision, losing security, or fear of failure. So even if the financial behavior changed temporarily, the emotional stress around money stays the same because the root was never healed. But once you realize, wait, maybe I was conditioned to fear money. You stop carrying so much shame. And honestly, I think some people watching this are going to realize for the very first time, I'm not bad with money. I'm scared of money. And those are two very different things. And fear creates avoidance. It creates emotional spending. It creates stress, overworking. It creates panic decisions. Fear creates that tension in your marriages. It keeps people emotionally exhausted around finances. And that's why understanding the root matters so much, because awareness is where healing starts. If you're realizing you want to break fear and think about money differently, so decisions feel calm in a more organized way to approach your finances, I actually created a free training where I'll walk through resetting your mindset and structure shifts. That helped organize and completely change the way I viewed money and organized our household finances. I'll link it below for you. It's not about extreme budgeting or restriction. It's really about creating more peace and clarity and intentionality around money. So if this resonates with you, make sure to click the link below. Now let's talk about the second shift because this part changed so much for me emotionally. At some point, I realized something really important. I had spent most of my life reacting emotionally to money without ever asking myself, how do I actually want to feel about money? That question changed a lot for me because up until then, money felt heavy, very stressful to even think about it or even bringing it up. It was stressful, it was fearful and tense and with uncertainty. But I realized I didn't want money to feel that way forever. I wanted money conversations to feel calm and natural, where I don't tense up when the subject is brought up. I wanted organization, I wanted clarity and peace. I wanted to stop feeling anxious every time I opened my bank account. And that shift matters because your financial life is deeply connected to your emotional life. If money constantly feels chaotic emotionally, it affects your home, your marriage, your stress levels, your mental space, and your ability to truly rest. You start constantly thinking about money, worrying about it, and dreaming about it. Everything begins revolving around what's in your bank account instead of living from a place of peace, of joy, clarity, and trust. And over time, the emotional weight can quietly steal the enjoyment from your everyday life. And one thing that started helping me tremendously was just having simple structure, not obsession or controlling every penny, not even extreme budgeting, but simple organization, structure, automating things, having systems, actually knowing where my money was going instead of winging it emotionally every month. And once things became more organized, the emotional heaviness around money started to lift, not because life became perfect overnight, but because that clarity, it helps reduce anxiety. And when everything feels foggy financially, your brain stays stressed, but structure, it creates that calmness. And I think this is important because so many people think financial peace only comes from making more money. And sometimes peace just comes from feeling organized your way that works for you and works for your lifestyle. One of the biggest mindset shifts for me spiritually happened after attending a financial workshop at church. And during that season, I started realizing deeper and yes, money matters. We need money to live. That's reality. And yes, we should steward it wisely, but money is not our ultimate source. God is. And God wants his people to be abundantly sufficient. And that perspective started changing my relationship with money completely. Because before that, money felt like the thing that was holding my safety, my peace, it was my security. But when money becomes your source of emotional security, fear increases because money can fluctuate. Unexpected things happen, life changes. But when I truly began believing God is my provider, something started softening emotionally. I stopped operating completely from panic. I stopped feeling like every financial decision determines my entire future. And I tell you, when you begin approaching money from stewardship, it starts to, instead of fear, things change. God becomes the ultimate provider for you, and you view money so differently. And I'm not saying you ignore finances. I'm not saying avoid responsibility. What I'm saying is money was never meant to emotionally control your life, and you should not let it. And I think some people need to hear this today that it is okay to desire financial freedom, to organize your finances, and to want peace around money. It is okay to enjoy life while also building wisdom financially. Money should support your life, not emotionally hold your life hostage. Matthew 6:26 says, consider the ravens. They neither sow nor reap. They have neither storehouse nor barn, and yet God feeds them. Of how much more value are you than the birds? When I hear this verse, it tells me I should not worry. Let me say that again. I should not worry. If God feeds the birds each and every day, he's going to make sure I'm taken care of as well. This helped me with putting money in its rightful place for me. Because instead of money being the thing I looked to for safety, I started realizing that money was never meant to carry that weight in the first place. It shifted my focus from constant worry about what I have to trust in who provides what I need. And when that shift happened, I didn't stop caring about money, but I stopped testing money and letting it control my peace. It started to feel like something I manage with wisdom, not something I carry with fear. If talking about money has felt scary for you, I really want you to know this. You are not broken. You may have simply learned to associate money with fear for a very long time. And healing that relationship starts first with awareness, understanding where the fear came from and redefining how you want to feel about money. And remembering that money is a tool. It is not your identity, it is not your worth, and it is not your ultimate source of peace. Because financial peace is not just about numbers, it's emotional, it's spiritual, and it's mental. And I truly believe money conversations can become calmer, they can become lighter and healthier over time. Thank you so much for being here. God bless.